What's the best way to start learning philosophy? Hey, welcome to ParkNotes. I'm Parker Settecase. I'm a PhD student in philosophy, and I get this question all the time. What is the best way to start learning philosophy? Can you give me some book recommendations? Can you show me where to start? So I'm going to do that for you in this video. I'll give you 3 ways to start learning philosophy, and I'm going to show you how really you should probably use all 3 of these in order to start learning philosophy and then to go on to start mastering philosophical ideas, the history of philosophy, and start doing philosophy for yourself. So real quick, let me just lay out those 3 different ways and then we'll take them in depth one at a time. So first up, you can start learning philosophy by learning about those who had or have philosophical ideas. That would be something like the history of philosophy. The second way is to just study those ideas that philosophers have had. So you're not studying the philosophers and their context, you're just studying ideas. So you're going to grab a book that introduces you to philosophical ideas. And then the third way is to get into primary texts. The books that philosophers have written, the really great philosophical books, maybe they're not great because the ideas are great, but they're great because history has deemed them great. They are the books that philosophers have to study in order to understand the history of philosophy and how we got to where we are with the ideas that we're currently wrestling with. Okay, so once you start taking philosophy more seriously, once you start trying to study it and learn it, you are going to have philosophical ideas. And the problem with that is that philosophical ideas are not patient. They don't care if you're ready to record them. They just pop into your mind, and sometimes you have a spark of insight. You don't want to forget that, but you can't write it down in your pocket notebook because you're driving, you're in the shower, you're on a long walk, you are reading a book, and you don't want to be diverted or sidetracked. That's what you need ParkNotes for. So I've been using ParkNotes for 2 years or so, and I'm switching to the ParkNotes Pro for all the reasons that I just mentioned. The ParkNotes Pro has a new AMOLED screen that shows battery levels and allows you to highlight key moments while recording. It also has improved battery life up to 50 hours. It's got improved audio quality and is easy to switch between different kinds of recordings. Plus, your data is safe with ParkNotes. Now, if you guys know me, you know I'm a big visual words guy. Listening back to the audio version of a memo is great, but ParkNotes actually generates a transcript of my voice notes. It gives me a summary so I know which note is which, and then provides a structured outline with different points and questions to help me better understand what I recorded. It also generates a mind map for the visual learners to get a more intuitive sense of their own thought process. So I like this tool because it helps you record and reflect on your own thoughts instead of offloading your thoughts and making you a mindless machine yourself. So if you're looking for a tool to help you sharpen your thoughts instead of replacing them, then check out ParkNotes Pro from the link in my description or in my pinned comment. So big thanks to ParkNotes for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into the history of philosophy, the first way to start learning it. So starting with something like a history of philosophy, a history of Western philosophy probably, textbook, is a great way to start learning philosophy. This is not the preferred method of philosophy teachers. I have a lot of philosophy professor friends. Most of them like to teach through primary texts. Why? Well, that's because they are the teacher. They're the ones who are guiding their students, and they're going to say, we're going to grapple with the text themselves. They don't want to use a textbook where someone summarizes like a gigantic thought and just makes it a couple pages, wraps a whole thinker into some kind of cliche in order for the student to keep going. They don't want to do that. They're going to make their students read the primary text and grapple with it themselves because they're there to guide them. But you are probably not in that situation. So you need to have a grasp of the lay of the land. What is philosophy? Who has done it? Who do we consider to be the really great philosophers? So you're probably going to want a history of philosophy book. Here's one by C. Stephen Evans. He's been on my podcast before. I like this book. I read this in graduate school. It was one of the required textbooks. And I actually had it beforehand because I liked it and I heard good things about it. So I read it before it was assigned to me. And it's a good book. It's a good History of Western Philosophy, but you have to know what this kind of thing is for. A survey book, like a History of Western Philosophy book it's a survey of these ideas. Don't expect to be a master in philosophy because you've read a survey of a great thinker or a great idea. This is just the starting point, just to get you to a lay of the land, just so you know who the main players are. So don't use this to think you're going to master. Use this to find out who you want to read next. So I think you should start with a History of Philosophy textbook. This one by C. Stephen Evans called A History of Western Philosophy is a good book. I recommend it. You can find a link to it in the description. The History of Philosophy textbook or textbooks that I hear recommended most from my philosophy professor friends is this one. It's a History of Philosophy there are a bunch of different volumes. I have them up there, but this is Frederick Copleston. I usually say Copleston. This is amazing. He wrote this for Catholic Jesuit priests. Catholics are really good at philosophy in seminary. And he wrote this massive series in the history of philosophy. I would recommend this first because it's very, very good. It's just hard to find. You're going to have to go to eBay and find used copies because it's out of print. That's what I did. If you're patient, you can find them all. It's great. It's worth collecting them. If it's worth collecting Pokemon cards, it's worth getting these. Got to catch them all. Get yourself some Copleston books. These are going to be more in-depth. It's still a survey, but he just treats the thinkers and the ideas really well. He does a great job of helping you understand big concepts. So the first way to start learning philosophy is to grab yourself a History of Philosophy textbook so that you can start figuring out what a philosopher is and who the philosophers were. What kind of ideas do they have? It's just a survey. That's what it's for. The next way to start learning philosophy is to grab yourself, instead of a book on the people who have done philosophy, grabbing a book about the ideas that those people have had. So something like Reality Plus by David Chalmers, Virtual Worlds and the Problems of Philosophy. This is a survey textbook, more of ideas than of people. Both are going to have both. A History of Philosophy is going to have people, but it's also going to have ideas. It's going to focus on the people. Something like this is going to focus more on the ideas while still introducing you to the people. So this is another way to start learning. Start with ideas instead of people. Again, it's a survey. I think you should do both. But this one's really good. It's a modern textbook because he's dealing with modern tech problems. That's the lens that he's teaching philosophical ideas through. So instead of just talking about skepticism and Descartes' evil genie or his evil demon, he's going to mention the Matrix instead, because that's a modern version of the skeptical global skepticism argument. So Reality Plus is a great book. I really like it. I think I can commend it to you. Again, you can find all these in the description. Another good idea book. I don't know how good these are. I haven't super skimmed these over. I found them at half-price books, and I liked them. I still like them. I think they're probably worth your money and your time. One is just 30-second philosophies. This is by Barry Lauer. And it's supposed to be 30 seconds. I mean, it's just a gross simplification. But this was written by a philosopher, and they did a good job of giving you like a one-page. It's not going to take just 30 seconds, but that's kind of gimmicky. It's very short, very, very short entries on philosophical ideas. So again, this is going to be an idea-centered entry into philosophy and learning philosophy. So, I mean, it's got a whole bunch of the ideas from Western philosophy. And I think it's good. I think this is a good start. Again, all of these are just starts. This is to help you get your feet wet, get into the philosophical conversation that's been going on. Another one would be How Philosophy Works. This is going to be a little bit more in-depth than the 30-second one. This may take you 40 seconds to get through each entry. No, it'll take you longer than that. But each 2 pages is a new idea. So class conflict in history, shaping the world with the mind, the blank slate, tabula rasa, the body as a machine. these are really good ideas. These are philosophical ideas. It's not going to give you the nuance that you need if you want to master these ideas, but it will help you get started. Even if they're sort of wrong, even if they're teaching you things that aren't quite right because they have to be terse, because they have to keep it at 2 pages, it's a start. You can argue with them later. If you say, hey, look, I learned about Descartes' dream argument from one of these 2 survey idea books, then I went to study more in depth, and I read a really rich journal article about Descartes' evil demon, and I saw that they weren't quite right. They didn't quite represent it right. Okay, good. Now you can go back and argue with them. You should go all the way to the primary text and wrestle with Descartes yourself, and then you can even critique the secondary literature. That's perfect. That's the way to do it. I'm spoiling my third way here, but that's one way to do it. Another set of idea books is going to be the Routledge books, the Routledge Contemporary Introductions. So here I have like the Philosophy of Time. This is a book all about that idea. It's a survey book. These are intense. These are very intense. They're good. You're going to have to read it a couple times. This is really for a master's student in philosophy. So maybe don't start with these. But if you've already been, maybe this is for those of you who like philosophy, who've already gotten into the ideas, grab one of the Routledge books. Grab, the Philosophy of Time. The Philosophy of Free Will, I will say, yes, this is probably for a master's student, but it's really accessible. Dirk Pereboom and Michael McKenna did a great job. I love this book. It's the best thing I read on free will ever. So I do recommend this for you. Yes, it's going to be challenging, but they don't use a whole ton of specific, analytic, rigorous terminology and symbols. They do a good job of keeping it readable for human beings and not just machine analytic philosophers. So I do commend this book. Yes, it will be a little bit challenging, not as much as the others in the series. This is a good book, all on free will. So you're going to be entering into philosophy through an idea, through the idea of free will. Another would be something like Alyssa Ney's Metaphysics, a great book on metaphysics, the nature of reality, the nature of existence and being, ontology, the philosophy of physics a little bit in there. Another great book that was required reading for my master's in philosophy. It's just really good. It's a really good book. So you're probably not going to get into epistemology, but metaphysics covers a lot. It's like realities, minds, and personal identity over time and stuff like that. So another great intro through the ideas route would be Alyssa Ney's Metaphysics. And then I saved the best for last, The Philosopher's Toolkit by Julian Baggini and Peter Fossel. This is a great book. They have a newer edition than the one that I have here. It's going to be like black and red, but you can find a use for cheaper, and it's going to be pretty close. I don't know the differences, but usually a textbook like this, they just change a couple things so they can come out with a new edition. Maybe not even the authors, but the publishers will do that. So do with that information what you will. The Philosopher's Toolkit is an entry into philosophy through ideas, but really through the tools of philosophy. So the philosophy of language and all the tools that come with that. Epistemology, what kind of tools do they use? What kind of notation do they use? What are some of those really big ideas that you have to know if you want to start studying philosophy? What are those tools? What are those concepts? Really, it's a book of concepts, philosophical concepts. And it's pretty comprehensive. I mean, it's very comprehensive. If you want to know the kind of concepts that philosophers need to use and do use, this is a great book to help you start learning philosophy through the ideas route. All right, so that's the second way. The first way, again, is going in through a history of philosophy, studying philosophy through those who have done it, through people. The second is studying philosophy through the ideas. Those ideas that the people have had, you go in through there, through concepts, through ideas, through philosophical concepts. The third way is to go through the primary texts. Now, I said at the beginning of this video that this is the method that's preferred by philosophy professors that I know. And I know a lot because I have a podcast and I have like 300 episodes, and each one's with a new philosophy or theology professor. So most of those folks like to use primary text. If you're going to talk about Blaise Pascal and his philosophical anthropology, you can read a secondary text about it, but you could also just read Pascal's Pensées and get that for yourself. If I were teaching a class on the history of philosophy, I would do that. I would make you learn through primary texts, but I would be there to help you and to teach you. Read Plato's Republic for yourself, but you may need a guide. You may need a guide to do that. So how am I going to recommend that to you who you are not in school, you don't have a guide? Well, I can be your guide in a sense. I have a book club on my Substack. My Substack is called Parker's Ponderings. You should be able to find that somewhere in the description. It's in the link in my profile. The link in my profile, you can find it there. But I will take you through a bunch of philosophical books, fiction and nonfiction. We switch off between the two. We go fiction, then we go nonfiction, fiction, nonfiction. And I write philosophical companion essays to those books to help you get the most out of the philosophy that's present in there. We read things like C.S. Lewis's Miracles. That was really fantastic, and I wrote a bunch of essays to help you understand that. We read Descartes' A Discourse on the Method. We read Boethius's The Consolation of Philosophy, maybe the best philosophical book ever written. We're going to read The Zap Gun by Philip K. Dick. Soliloquies. We just read The Place of the Lion by Charles Williams, which is just this crazy, trippy, Platonic novel. Talking about Plato's forms. Really, really wild concepts and stuff. And then my favorite so far has been Dune. And from this, I actually got a book deal because of the essays I wrote for this. So that's fantastic. All those essays, those companion essays, are still there on my blog on Parker's Ponderings. So you can choose to go through the books that I've already gone through with my book club and read at your own pace, and then read along through those companion essays where I help you understand the philosophy in these books and philosophy more generally. So I'll introduce you to concepts like a posteriori reasoning and a priori reasoning. Reasoning before experience and reasoning after. That's a key distinction that you need to know if you're going to start learning philosophy. So I find ways to introduce that to you through the books that we're reading, fiction and nonfiction. So I'll be your guide. I can help you. You can also go to people like Jared Henderson. He has a book club, reading group there on his Substack as well. He's a PhD philosopher. There's plenty of people on Substack who lead book clubs who you can join. I would love you to join mine. That'd be awesome. So find someone to help you through there, to help you read the primary texts. Another way is to go off a reading list of primary texts. So I have on my Substack, I will link that in the description, I have a list of 100 philosophical books to help you start getting into philosophy. They include lots and lots of fiction and nonfiction. Many of them are books that either I've gone through in my book club or I'm going to go through in my book club. So you can find companion essays to a lot of those, but a lot of the times it's just like, what are some good books for me to start reading so I can start grappling with philosophical ideas myself? Well, I came up with 100 of those for you. That is free for you to read. You can check those out. You can check that out in the link in somewhere in my description. It'll be something like 100 philosophical books to help you learn, something like that. You can find it very easily. The companion essays for my book club are for paid subscribers, so if you want to join that, then upgrade to a paid subscription over on my blog, and then I'll be your teacher. It's like $8 a month, and you can get all-you-can-eat access to companion essays to help you start learning philosophy from scratch and then go in super deep as well. So those are the three ways. Start with a history of philosophy book so that you can start understanding the lay of the land. Then, you may not even follow this exact pattern, but then grab yourself a book on philosophical ideas, like some of the ones that I've mentioned here in this video, and then get to the primary texts themselves. The idea books and the history books, they're both surveys, and really what you should be doing is looking at that survey and then going to the source and saying, how good was that survey? This guy talked about Descartes. This guy talked about Kant. Kant's going to be tough. But this guy talked about Hume. Hume will also be tough. They're all going to be tough. Some are harder than others. This guy talked about Blaise Pascal. He's not so tough. He's not so hard. Did Pascal's wager really say what the survey said it said? Is it really as easily dismissed as the maybe atheist who wrote the History of Philosophy book that I read said it was? Maybe I should read Pascal and grapple with his wager myself, or grapple with his philosophical anthropology, what he says a man is, or a woman is, what he says humanity is. I should go check that out for myself. Yes, you should. That's how you learn philosophy. You need to know where to go, and then you need to go there and read for yourself. Start marking up the text. Start wrestling with the ideas in your own notebook. Yes, you should use a notebook for sure. All right, so there are 3 ways. I hope that's been helpful for you. If it was, let me know in the comments. If you have other questions, I'm here to help you learn. So please ask your questions in the comments. If you have some suggestions on books, where to start, different podcasts, something like the History of Philosophy Without Gaps, or Philosophize This, or Parker's Pensées. Mine's going to be kind of technical, so careful. But if you have suggestions, please drop those as well. All right, that's going to do it for now. I'll catch you guys next time.